Well, good morning. It is Monday morning. We are back, and I am ready to do a devotion with you. And I got a lot of stuff to share with you over the next few days. So I hope that you will enjoy this and that everything will be well with you today. First of all, we were on vacation last week. We're in the North Georgia mountains in a little community called Suches, Georgia, in the valley above the clouds. And we were in an Airbnb house, and nobody near us really. And if you see the verse I put on the church Facebook page and then on my page also, the verse for the day in Mark about the woman that we're going to talk about in a minute, that is a background picture of the road in front of our house that we stayed in, or the house that we stayed in. And I will tell you how quiet and serene it was. One day, we saw a total of 5 vehicles go by the house. 5 total. And 2 times by the house, it was the same one. It was a school bus going to pick up the kids in the morning and then to bringing them home in the afternoon. So really only 4 vehicles in a 8 to 10, 12-hour period. That's how quiet it was. And we needed that. So to my church family, thank you for letting us go on vacation. And we enjoyed being away. We did some hiking, did a lot of sitting around, did some eating. Did a lot of resting, got in our hammocks and read books and hiked all over the place and enjoyed God's creation and enjoyed time as a family, which we don't get the chance to do very much. And it was just a wonderful time for all of us, and we're all better this week, coming into our work weeks, I think. So thank you for letting us go. If you want to see pictures, come by and see us. Come by the office. I'll show you what I've got. And if you see Karen, you can see what she's got. She's got a bunch too. We kind of got the same ones, but maybe a few different ones. But we would love to talk to you if you can. And I'll tell you one more blessing about it. We didn't wear a mask all week except for when we went to Helen. On Thursday, we went to Helen, Georgia to spend the day in that little town. And we wore a mask that day. But outside of that, we didn't wear a mask all week because there was nobody around. It was just us. So anyway, let's get to the Bible verse. I quoted in the picture there, Mark 5:28, where the woman that we're about to read this story about, the woman said, "If I would just touch the hem of his garment, I will be made well." And that is the centerpiece of this story I want to talk to you about this morning, but there's also a couple other little details I want to show you. So turn to Luke chapter 8. I want to look at Luke's presentation of this story because it has a few more details. Luke was a doctor, and you know how doctors are. Doctors are detailed, at least they're supposed to be in their profession. And Luke writes that way. He writes in a detailed fashion. So there's some details here we need to pay attention to. So Luke chapter 8, verse 40. And I want you to listen to the word of God. Now, when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age. Pay attention to that. 12 years of age. And she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him. Crowds were always around him. So here he is being pressed on by people, being swayed in the crowd, going to take care of Jairus' daughter. And this is what happens in verse 43. And there was a woman who had had a discharge of blood for 12 years. 12 years again. We're going to pay attention to that in just a second. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" And when all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive the power has gone out from me." And the woman saw that she was not hidden. She came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And then we read through and we go and we see that Jesus did the same thing for Jairus' daughter. He went to her house. They thought she was dead. And he says, "She is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Oh, don't laugh at Jesus. Oh, don't laugh at Jesus. And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he said, "Child, arise," which can be interpreted in another verse. It said Talitha Kalum, which means child arise. And her spirit returned and she got up at once, and they gave her something to eat. And they were amazed at what had happened. So I want to talk to you about these two characters here. We have Jairus' daughter, who is 12 years old. She is dying. We don't know what she was dying from, but Jesus brings her back from the dead and heals her. We have this woman who has been bleeding an issue of blood for 12 years, and she touches the hem of Jesus' garment, and she is completely healed. Now, let's look at this in perspective. When we look at the child, Jairus' daughter, we look at 12 years for that young lady, and we think, that's not very long. Why would God allow a child of 12 years old to die? We think about that all the time when we see that a child has passed away. Why would God allow somebody so young to die? Well, we're not going to answer that question right now because that's God's business. But anyway, just looking at it from a perspective, a 12-year-old child losing their life is looked at as young. It's a short period of time. But now we have on the other side this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years. She's had this issue of blood. Luke tells us that she had spent all her money on physicians, all of it. She had nothing left, and no one in 12 years have been able to cure her. Now, you look at that perspective of 12 years, that's a long time to deal with that. So we got two people here. We got a child and then a woman. We don't know how old she was, but she was older. And we look at that. Why would God allow somebody to suffer like that for 12 years? You see the two perspectives. The matter here is not the time from our perspective, because we think about a child being so young. We think about a woman experiencing that for 12 years being a long time. It's exactly the same time frame in each of their lives. It's just perspective. But it's also a matter of God's timing, and that's what we should be focusing on here. That's what that lady declared when she said, I touched the hem of his garments and I was completely healed. I was made well. And she testified to that. Here's the point. No matter whether we look at the perspective of the young lady being so young or looking at the woman dealing with this for so long, the matter is that Jesus gave both of them their lives back completely. And that should teach us a lesson today. We have been in this situation that we're in right now since March. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't have a clue, but I know God knows. So we got to look at it from his time and perspective. What we need to do is do what both of these people did. In the lady's behalf, she just touched the hem of his garment and she was made well. Jairus' daughter was dead and Jesus went and touched her. In both situations, he gave them their lives back, but only because of his touch. And that's an important thing for you and me. I was sitting in my hammock reading a book, and I've been reading about this that day. And it occurred to me that as I read this book about a lady from the 9/11 tragedy, the same thing was true in her life and is true in our lives. We are to focus on Jesus each day and let him make us well for that day. Whatever our struggles are, whatever our situations are, we can get through the day because he is faithful and he is true. And all we have to do is touch him and let him do his work. He's always faithful. He always has been faithful, and he will always be faithful. And here's what I said in my hammock to the Lord that day. I said, but Lord, we've been going through COVID for however long now, since March. 7, 8 months, whatever it's been. And then God kind of spoke to me and said, well, what if I make you go through it for 12 years? Are you willing to do that to get closer to me? And my answer was, yes. Whatever you want, Lord. And if we have to go through this for 12 years in order to be more closer to God and be more faithful to God and be better witnesses to God, then so be it. Let's do it. Now, I'm not asking for the bad part of it. I'm not asking for all the death and the destruction it's caused on families because of people who have passed away from this. I'm not asking for that. But I'm simply asking God, whatever you want me to do to touch you every day and experience you and focus on you and do what you ask me to do, I'm willing to do it. And if it takes 12 years to get a cure, then so be it. Personally, I don't think it's going to take that long, but just say that it does. Look at it from perspective. A 12-year-old girl, we don't want a 12-year-old to die. That's too young to die. They got too much to live for. A lady or a man who suffers from something for 12 years, that's a long time. But the point is this: whatever we need to do until God's work is done in us, that's what we need to let happen. We don't need to complain. We don't need to struggle. We depend on the Lord, and we reach out and touch his garment every day. I put that picture with the verse on it on the Facebook pages for a reason. That road in front of the house symbolizes the road that we all live on. And you'll notice that you couldn't see the end of the road. You couldn't see behind you either and see the beginning of the road. But somewhere, we're all in that road. We're all on a road somewhere. Hopefully, you're on the road to heaven with Jesus. But whatever our road is, whether it's short or long, wide or narrow, and believe me, we experience some narrow roads up there in the mountains. They're not the same as here in Mississippi where we live, or where you live probably. But whatever road you're on, the most important thing you can do is focus on Jesus. And not just focus on him, but reach out and touch him every single day and let him be faithful and get you through. I hope this helps you today. Looking forward to the rest of the week. Got some more stuff to share with you that God's been talking to me about for a period of days now. And I hope that you have a great day. We will see you tomorrow, Lord willing. Be sure that you can pray for each other. And if you need anything, let us know. God bless y'all. Y'all have a great Monday.